Good morning, fourth grade. Um, a special book just arrived from Amazon that's going to help with the unit Three Worlds Collide. This is Beyond the Sea of Ice, The Voyages of Henry Hudson. As you continue through the next few weeks in Ed Time, this reading is going to help supplement your understanding of the Europe's motives for exploring. Um, this slide shows the introduction to uh, to the book Beyond the Sea of Ice by Joan Elizabeth Goodman. As you listen to this recording of the introduction, I want you to keep these two questions in mind. What role did the Crusades play in European exploration? Think back to third grade and ancient China um, and the Silk Road and how goods were traded along that and how there was a power play for that control of that region. So what role did the Crusades play in European exploration? And then also, what was the motive that sparked Europe's interest to explore? Half the crew of the Discovery was too ill to leave their berths. The other half was plotting mutiny and murder. All had suffered from frostbite, scurvy, hunger, and the long Arctic winter of despair. Scurvy is a disease that is not common anymore. It's a lack of vitamin C, and a lot of people traveling on long voyages by boat would get this disease, but it's a lack of vitamin C. The ship had been trapped in an ice-bound bay far in the north of America. Finally, spring was melting the ice, setting the ship free. They could return to England, to home. But the captain talked of exploring the western reaches of this frigid sea, saying that it led to the long-sought passage to the Orient. The mutineers cared no more for his dream of the East. For the East, they bound the captain, put him in a small boat with his son and the sick men, and cast them adrift. Mutineers, those are people who take part in a mutiny, and a mutiny is the overthrowing of the person who is in charge. The Discovery sailed away from her captain, Henry Hudson, on June 22nd, 1611. The beautiful river in New York, the great northern bay in Canada, and the strait leading to it bear his name. Though his name is well known, Henry Hudson himself remains a puzzle nearly 400 years after his death. Not even a record of his birth exists. There's a lot of information about the 4 voyages he made from 1607 to 1611, but his career as explorer and navigator of the North Atlantic is filled with as many questions as answers. Henry Hudson devoted his life to exploring and charting the northern seas, hoping to find the elusive passage to the Orient. Until the 1400s, most of the world beyond Europe was remote and mysterious, as the far reaches of the galaxy are for modern people. Then came the period known as the Renaissance. It was a time when great changes were taking place in the arts, in literature, and in science. Europeans began to look at the world around them and wonder. They studied the placement and movement of heavenly bodies. They investigated nature. They began to explore the vast unknown seas that surrounded the known earth and to record what they found in maps. The great age of exploration was sparked by one large event: the Turkish conquest of Constantinople in 1453. This shut down the overland trade route from the Far East to Europe that had been used for centuries. But Europe had grown accustomed to the spices brought from the Spice Islands in the Indian Ocean. Meats were heavily spiced to mask their often rancid nature. Even sweet dishes such as pies and puddings were strongly flavored with cinnamon, cardamom, and clove. Spices were costly, but Europeans of the Middle Ages and Renaissance craved them. Food without spice was inedible. Europe also needed the precious metals and gems of the East. Before paper money, these resources were used as currency, and Europeans who could afford it demanded the silks of China. Another way had to be found to the Orient. In the Renaissance, the science of the Earth's geography was based on theories of ancient Greek philosophers, popular beliefs, and misinformation. No one knew exactly how big the Earth was, nor what it looked like, but there were many theories. It was commonly thought that the Earth was divided into balanced masses of land, and that all the world's seas were connected and in constant flow. The Earth was thought to be much smaller. A couple words in here that we might need some clarity on. Let's see, currency right here. Currency, that's it's another term for money, what people used to buy things. The other one, when we're talking about the Orient, we're talking about East Asia, in particularly China. A philosopher here. Philosophers are, it's a fancy way of saying a thinker. Next page. So the Earth was thought to be much smaller than it actually is, and China to be much closer to Europe. It was almost believed that the ancient Greeks had reached China by sailing along the north coast of Russia. A group of wealthy English merchants banded together to find this northwestern passage. They called themselves the Merchant Adventurers. In May of 1553, they sent 3 ships north around Norway and Finland through seas of storm and ice. Only one of the ships and crew survived. They made it to the northern coast of Russia and proceeded overland to Moscow. The merchant adventurers secured trading rights and became known as the Muscovy Company. The Russian trade was profitable, but the frigid winters limited the access of ships, making it extremely difficult. Beyond Russia were the Spice Islands and the markets of China and India. That was the real treasure trove. The Muscovy Company renewed its efforts to find a northern route to the Orient. This right here is the map of the first voyage, second, third, and fourth. You can see that it's marked with the dashed red lines, the blue, orange, and purple. Take a look at the first voyage. Trace the route. Pause the video if you need to. The next reading is going to be about the first voyage. Let's go back to the questions. So what role did the Crusades play in European exploration? What was the motive that sparked Europe's interest to explore?